Welcome back. It's Louisa Tannermunson from Feel Good Astrology, and this is part 2 of my September update. Again, I'm doing this live because I'm really busy right now. There's lots and lots of client inquiries going on, which I often find happen when, especially in years where there's a big planet changing signs, when there's lots of retrogrades coming up towards an equinox or a solstice, node changes. So there's, even though they're not all happening at the same time, this is quite an epic year. So there's a lot of inquiries at the moment. Anyway, in part 1, I spoke more about the overview of September. So in particular, I kind of ranted a little bit about the idea of the super blue moon that starts on August the 31st, which actually isn't September, but I think really leads into September. There isn't a new moon until the second week of September. So it almost feels like the end of August marks the beginning of September, in my opinion. I also mentioned about the retrogrades. There's 7 retrogrades during this month. At the start, this Mercury and Venus, they often, they actually turn around and start going direct early on. Venus on the 4th and Mercury on the 15th. Then we've got Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, Chiron and Pluto all retrograde, and Pluto joins them on the 4th. So I spoke quite a bit about that. I spoke about some of the enduring patterns throughout the month ahead. So, for instance, we've got Juno in a conjunction with Venus all month. We've got Venus in a trine with Chiron all month. By default, that also means Juno's in a trine with Chiron all month. So I did sort of really put it out there that this is a healing month. This is about us recognizing how we can self-care and self-love to a much greater level. And I think that fits perfectly onto the end of the Venus retrograde. So I'm really, really pleased about that. I also mentioned the fact that, Eris is in a conjunction with the North Node. And as we go through this month, in particular, right at the end, you'll see that Mars is starting to line up with the South Node. That's more for October, but it's still a sort of like a story arc that we're going into as we progress through September. Ultimately, I think the biggest story, and we've had this really throughout most of August too, but we've got this lovely trine energy between Uranus and Pluto. And Uranus is all about change and spontaneity, and Pluto is about transformation, real core stuff. And in a trine, they're working really well together. They're really trying to help us. They're giving us all the necessary ingredients to have a real clean slate and to really I don't know, just like clear the decks, I guess. And throughout this month, seeing as we're going into Virgo time, or we're actually already there. We're now in the Virgo season. I'm expecting to find, and I already know is going to happen, is we're going to have Mercury at the start and at the end of the month forming the third point of a grand trine, and in the middle of the month, as Mercury is still is moving out of that trine, the sun is moving to take his place, and then the moon is moving to take his place. So on the 15th, when we've got the lovely new moon that I'm going to be talking about very, very soon, we've got the grand trine with Pluto, Uranus, the sun and the moon. Only it's not just a trine, it's actually a kite, because we've got Neptune at the top. So this is really, really great energy. And then as the month progresses and the sun and moon move away, Mercury goes back into that place. So it's like Pluto and Uranus are always being used in this month ahead in a very sort of personal way. At the start and at the end of the month, in terms of our thinking, we're really able to process a lot of thoughts that have been bothering us and bugging us. We're really able to get down to that nitty gritty layer that I think is so important. And then mid-month, we're able to actually incorporate what we already know into some kind of personal change and personal kind of action, which I think is super duper. And obviously the new moon is in Virgo, which really helps us if one of our aims is to get A, organized, B, legit, just in case there are sort of legalistic or organizational things that you're not quite up to date on, that's perfect. But it's also really good about getting fit for health. Like, is your life fit for purpose? Are you fit for purpose? Is everything in your life fit for purpose? I actually think this is quite a reflective month. Before I look at week 3 and 4, I just want to say one other thing. Because we've got all these retrogrades going on at the moment, there's not so much movement in the planets. And so there's not much changing of the aspects. I think that's one of the reasons why right now this trine with, sorry, I don't want to do kind of any Illuminati signals with my hands, but I'm so expressive with my hands. So, how do you do a trine without everyone going, oh my God, she's one of them? Anyway, that aside, I'm not going to do a Jim Carrey. And for those of you that have seen, or Paul, what's his name, from the Beatles, Paul McCartney, he does them left, right, and center. Anyway, that aside, we've got this very static grand trine energy, with Pluto and Uranus really working it. And because Venus and Mercury aren't moving so much because they've been retrograde and then they've been slowly, like when you're reversing your car, as you're coming to a stop, you slow down. And then as you start off again, you start slowly. And that's the same with Mercury and retrograde. So they're not moving a huge amount this month. Hence, they're not making that many aspects to other planets. And we normally are moving on this kind of energy. We've normally got lots of aspects cropping up between all of our planets all the time. In the first 2 weeks, especially, what I really see is just really the sun and the moon that are really the big players. But from the 15th, things start to move again, and that's when it gets exciting. So we're getting to that point now where I'm looking at week 3 and 4. Now, at the start of week 2, we've got the new moon. That's literally at the start on the 15th. And then at the start of the week 3, sorry, that's week 1, week 2. Yeah, at the start of week 3, we've got the new moon. And then at the start of week 4, we've got the equinox. So that's perfect. And then right at the end of the month, we've got the full moon. So it does appear to be a game of two halves with this month. Before I do get going, I've made this a live show. So if there is something you want to comment or ask a question, please feel free to let me know where you're listening in from. I can see I've got some people listening, and I love to say hello and involve you and celebrate you as well as fellow lovers of astrology. I love that sort of community feel. So please feel free to say hello. Don't be shy. Let me know where you're listening in from, and also if I can help at all. So let's bring on the chart for the new moon on the 15th of September. Now, you can see that the new moon, actually I can't see because I've got something in my way. It starts at 2:39 a.m. That's London time. So if you're listening in the States, this is actually starting for you most likely on the 14th of September. All of my charts are located around the UK and Portugal, which have the same time zone. That's the one I'm living in. So apologies for that. Now, at the exact time of the new moon, this is actually just showing like 1 minute of arc difference, like from 58 to 59. But like they're at 21 degrees 59. Now, essentially, you could say this at 22 degrees. Let's round this up a bit. So if you've got anything in the sign of Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Gemini at 21 or 22 degrees, this new moon is likely to really energize you. It's likely to get things moving. In particular, if your birthday is around the 15th, this is going to have an extra sort of resonance for you. Like you might say your birthday is like the 11th to the 18th or 19th. I mean, that will still, be triggering in your chart. And of course, the closer you are to the 15th of September, the more important that is. But the Virgo new start is really like a clean slate. Now, the ruler of Virgo is actually Mercury, which is retrograde. However, on this particular day, it's about to go direct. So it's kind of really funny, really, that we've got this new moon in Virgo with all that Virgo energy, and the ruler at the time of the new moon is retrograde. It's still like slightly new feeling. It's almost at a stop. It's almost like our brain function is about to shift up a gear. So if we go back on the sort of analogy of a retrograde, oh, I've got Anita. Hello, Anita. Very nice to see you. Hi from Queensland, Australia. It's really nice to be joined from people from different parts of the world. I don't get many Australians join with me because, sometimes I'm a bit too late in the day for you. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know you're there. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, Mercury, as he's going retrograde, he's kind of speeding back as if you're reversing down the road. You go quite fast. You come to a stop, and then at that stop point, it's almost like you're not doing anything, and then you start to move forwards again. That's when Mercury goes direct. And so Mercury's almost at this stop point. It's almost like, okay, I get it. I've done all my reimagining, re-envisaging, rewiring, resetting, reviewing, all of this stuff where you're kind of absolutely unraveling your mind and looking deeply at your processes, given that it's in the sign of Virgo. But you've done so much unraveling over this last 3-week period of Mercury retrograde, and it's almost like you're stopped in your tracks. It feels like there is a pause in the thought, and there you go. That actually stopped me just thinking about it. It's almost like it's the place where words stop, and you've got that clearing to actually slowly come back into your feeling and thinking. I would say feeling as well, because Venus has just recently gone direct by this point. And of course, Venus is in this lovely conjunction with Juno and is also connected in a trine to Chiron. So we're really feeling, and we've got this space to think differently. And we've got this lovely new moon in Virgo. So the new moon in Virgo themes, like I've already said, administrative, it's health related, it's getting to the nitty gritty. It's very much about getting things functional again. But if you think about it, it's also an earth sign. So it's also about grounding, really grounding. It's also about establishing trust, because I think that's super important to any Virgos I know. It's a very, important energy. And it's about, I think, finding a way to articulate how you're actually feeling. Like if you could, like for a moment, be able to get conscious of what healing is going on within you, the next stage is to kind of be able to verbalize it, or even just tell yourself. And so I think, in this new moon, we've got the potential to really get clear about what our problems are or what has held us back. And to articulate it in such a clear way that we can never be confused by it or surprised by it again. It really is clearing a space for a new context for us. And I also think if we've already done that and we're already like dreaming into the future and, working and laying plans and things like that, it gives us that very clean and unfettered way to build forwards. So I really, really like this. Also, the sun and moon are in a lovely, almost exact trine to Uranus, which speeds up consciousness. So if you were to use this to lay out an intention to do a bit of law of attraction type work, this would be a very, very strong and unique time to do it, because, with the clarity that you've got, I think nothing calls your future to you or your vibrational match to you as quickly as holding a clear vibration. And once, if you're holding a confused vibration, that's why your life is a bit of a mess. So I really think this is a moment of clarity, a moment of peace, and a moment of attracting really what we're going for. So this is super strong. And of course, because we've got this lovely Uranus trine to Pluto, that also means Pluto is in a trine to the sun and moon. You couldn't get anything stronger than that to really support you. I mean, how does it get any better than this is a good question to ask at that day. Now, one thing I would say about this time is the sun and the moon are also in opposition to Neptune. Again, that's highlighting the need for clarity, because when we're not being very clear, yes, we go into a creative place, but you want to watch that your creative place isn't actually taking you somewhere that you can't get out of. I often think of, we've been swimming in the ocean quite a lot. We live right by the beach in Portugal on the Silver Coast. And this year we've had loads and loads of seaweed. And, as we're venturing out, within half a meter or so, just as, we're getting a little bit deeper, getting buffeted by the waves and stuff, we're getting seaweed wrapped around our ankles. And it's really hard to see. And I think Neptune can be like that. So I think, this new moon is great because it's giving us the clarity so that when we're getting wrapped in seaweed and kind of pulled under into this murky place of emotions, we've got like this, it's almost like we've got this life jacket of clarity. So, your clarity is your savior in this month ahead, I would say. And it's not often that I actually speak to, yay, let's be rational versus let's be intuitive. I'm normally on the side of intuition, but I think there's a really lovely balance here. And to be fair, the most sane way to be is to be very much in balance. So that's how I really feel about the new moon. I just think it's a very, very strong time, and a very beautiful time. Let's just go back and see if there's any more questions. Nothing coming in yet, so that's great. So let's have a look at the equinox then. I've got quite a few charts here. Here we go. So the equinox is coming in on the 23rd. And so as with all equinoxes or solstices, we've got the sun at 0 degrees 00, either the start of Libra and Aries. They're the two equinoxes. So we've got the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere. Be different for you, Anita, I'm guessing. And this is the start of the autumn equinox for us in the northern hemisphere, or the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere. And then obviously at 0 degrees Capricorn, we've got the winter solstice and the summer solstice at 0 degrees in the sign of Cancer. Again, reverse that if you're in the southern hemisphere. But these 4 degrees, the 0 degrees of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, I consider these to be the 0 point energy, like where you put your hand into a magician's hat. That sounds really creepy. And you never know what you're going to pull out. You're going to pull out a rabbit, a string of flags or knickers or whatever, or flowers. That would be nice. But I think it's a bit like putting your hand into a black hole, and it survives the whole transition, but you could pull anything out of it. Like, we don't know what goes on behind black holes. It's a bit of a mystery. And I think these 0 point energies are like astrological black holes where anything is possible, where everything exists and anything is possible. And so I see this as a very strong intention point again. So if you think about it, like if you're a bit of a witchy or intentional person or a meditative person, and somebody who's planning something quite big at the moment, if I was in your shoes, I think I would, on the time of the new moon, is get really clear about your intentions and then restate them, reclarify them at the time of the equinox, and then reclarify them again at the time of the full moon. In fact, that's a practice I've been doing for years, like new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon. And then any particular time, if there's an unusual conjunction, for instance, the when I was talking about the sun and the moon at 22 degrees in the sign of Virgo, linking into 22 degrees in the sign of Taurus, where Uranus is, like in April of next year, around 22 degrees in the sign of Taurus, you've got this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This is a great manifestation point, and I will be recording about this. But you could, like things like that, I will also use as an intention point. It's a moment to acknowledge the potential energy and to begin to sense yourself into that shift and to bring it into your conscious reality, to allow it to come into your energetic fields and start to vibrate with your frequency. So I think it's a really powerful time. Now, in particular with this one, on the day, I mean, this is resetting the next season. And again, clarity is a huge issue. The sun is in opposition, an even tighter opposition. It's not that tight, but it's tighter than it was at the time of the new moon. Or is it? Actually, it's equidistant, funnily enough. So scrap that. But anyway, the sun is in an opposition to Neptune, showing that in this next quarter, one of the hallmarks of what we need to know is, we need to find a way of finding out how to discern things. We almost need our own technique or our own area of scrutiny. Recently, I did a lovely video with a fellow coach on my other channel, the Barefoot Broadcast, and did a recording called Dueling with Duality. Whenever you find yourself saying something like, it shouldn't be like this, this should never have happened. When you're saying things like this to yourself, which we all do, obviously, we're fighting with what is because it's already happened. And so really what you're doing is commenting about your displeasure and your upset that something has already happened. And it doesn't really put you in a place of being a divine creator. It puts you in a place of being a divine or perpetual victim, unfortunately. And trust me, I use these phrases myself quite a lot, and I have to try and pick myself up on it. But Neptune, as well as being a creative planet, is actually one of the planets that really shows up in a birth chart in terms of victimhood, bullying, feeling like you're always on the back foot, feeling like you're overlooked, and also that kind of sense of not knowing where you are, that sense of confusion, like where do you fit in? How far do you go? Uranus doesn't have it's not Uranus, Neptune doesn't have very good boundaries, especially in the sign of Pisces. And so, this new season is really highlighting and saying, this is where we are, or this is where we can be. How comfortable is it? Because this is really where you want to be, at the start of a Libran thing. Because a lot of people do tend to hold on to their Neptune positions. A lot of people allow themselves to go into confusion quite easily, and to get bogged down with lots of things. In particular, I think Neptune in Pisces, when it went in, I think it really heralded the start of the overwhelmment, the spiritual overwhelmment of people, and the start of social media in earnest. The whole phenomenon of social media overwhelm, like the layering. It also created confusion as to, I think, what a true genius is, or who you're, I don't know, like people used to aspire to be like people who did amazing things, and now a lot of people follow influencers and aspire to be more like them. And so it's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's an interesting phenomenon. And I think at some level our souls have got a bit confused along the way. There's so much to pick up on. And if you're particularly empathic or intuitive, this time has been a baptism of fire, to be fair. Now, this new season is really saying, be mindful of this. Be mindful of where you get confused and how you got confused and the things that you're saying that lead into that. But now the path is to be clear. Now, being clear doesn't stop you being compassionate and kind. And the sign of Libra, for all its people-pleasing qualities, Libra does have this amazing way of discerning. It's an air sign and it's based on balance. Librans know where they do know what's right for them, and they also know what's wrong for them. They've got a good sense of definition there, and they're a cardinal sign, so they've got a bit of get up and go. So I see that the start of the next season is about taking control a little bit more of our thoughts and not letting ourselves get carried away, and saying, okay, yeah, your intuition has picked up this, but does this bear the scrutiny of it? Again, I'm actually standing for reason or rationality here, ironically, which is not my usual preferred position. Now, the sun is also in a conjunction with Pallas Athena, which is all about strategy, all about recognizing patterns, and all about words and how we use them, and also the power of numbers. All sorts of codes and languages come into this. So I think this is going to be a highly interesting season ahead. It's also in a square at the inception of it. It's in a square to the moon, showing that we are going to be challenged. You know, our head and our hearts are going to be in friction a lot of the time. And the wise thing, I think, is to find our way into a heart of wisdom. So I do think we should work from our heart centers a lot more from our head, but it has to be a place of wisdom. It has to be a place of grounded. A phrase my friend Rick says is wise and intelligent behaviors. So I really see that this season ahead is about creating and embedding and practicing wise and intelligent behaviors, and we get to see where we've had unwise and unintelligent behaviors, and it's not easy. But boy, does it shift things. And obviously the sun is still in a trine to Uranus, which is very, very helpful, very helpful indeed. We've also got this square to Vesta. Sure, it's not a planet, but Vesta, I think, really shows us all about our integrity. So I really see this month. I've got high hopes for this month, real high hopes for this month. And this quarter, I think it's quite exceptional. So I'm just going to check in. Penny is sharing with me. I've got Jupiter at 21 degrees in Virgo. Is this in any way significant? Definitely at the time of the new moon, Penny. It's a very powerful new moon for you. I can't remember off the top of my head what your ascendant is. But think about like which house is this taking place in your chart. So for instance, if I use this as an example, like where's like if your Jupiter is in Virgo in this chart, it would be falling in the 12th house. So this new moon in the 12th house is almost like a new start about things that are all 12th housey, i.e. reprogramming, going internal. The 12th house is about what's hidden from us. It's almost what's in our blind sight. So it's a very deep and fast acting area. Actually, not that fast acting. It's very intuitive. And I also think it's a place where we have a lot of unspecified feelings. We can't quite put our finger on it. So having the new moon in this area, for instance, would help us to really clarify what patterns we've got going on, what patterns are playing, and how we can get some control over it. If your Virgo, for instance, is in the 6th house, then you might be more looking at health. So find out what house it's in, and that will give you a much more a much bigger view of it. But with the sun over your Jupiter, and also I'm just going to get the full moon in Aries up next. With your sun in Jupiter and sorry, the sun in a connection with your Jupiter and the moon in a conjunction with Jupiter, that's going to be highlighting a lot of well-being and those feelings of well-being. You might not have as much discipline as is implied by the new moon in Virgo. Now, you said Libra is your ascendant. So it actually probably is in your 12th house. Depending on how many degrees in Libra your ascendant is. So that was kind of that was interesting that I got the right house or life showed me the right house just because of the chart I was looking at. Thank you so much for that, Penny. Right, let's have a look at this last week then. Let's make that a bit bigger. So we've already started, by looking at the resetting of the new season from the equinox. Now let's have a look at the sort of end of this 4th week in September. And on the 29th of September, that will be, what time is it? 10:57 a.m. So in fact, in Australia, you may well find that this is happening according to where you are. You might find that this is happening on the 28th, right at the end of the day for you in Australia. I think most of America is aboard there, but Hawaii might find that they're still in, that their full moon is on the 30th or something. But so it's interesting to pay attention to the positions of where you are. But anyway, early morning on the 29th of September, the moon is at 6 degrees in the sign of Aries, and the sun is at 6 degrees in the sign of Libra, because obviously we're in Libra territory at that point. This is a very sort of pattern-based full moon. And so when I was talking about our emotions and how we can get a little bit more rational, or actually the word I was using was wise and intelligent behaviors, as we're cultivating these, this full moon really throws a spanner in the works. This full moon is almost demanding to feel really angry, or feel very passionate, and feel very arduous, and feel very like so much ardor, so much life and vitality, and probably a bit of aggression. You may well find, given that I always think full moons are really showing us the projection, so of what is actually going on in us, and where the moon is showing how we're finding other people, and it's what we might not be able to accept in ourselves. So where we've been quite controlled, like self-control, and where we've been watching ourselves, you may well find that around the time of the 29th, at the time of the full moon, that we flip out a little bit, or we're noticing other people are flipping out. So it's not a great time to go and get drunk anywhere. I know a lot of businesses have their payday right at the end of the month, and when that coincides with a full moon, that's not necessarily very helpful. But yeah, this is going to be encouraging a lot of feeling in us. Now it's square to Vesta. It's almost showing us that there's a cost to our truth, and there's a cost to our knowing, and that cost is irritating. It's like we're realizing how our views have cost us. So for instance, over the last few years, my views have changed quite considerably. I've considered myself quite left leaning, a little bit right leaning, but of course the more left leaning the left goes, by default, if ever I've been in a sort of like more right state, I've actually been kind of dragged into the middle. It's funny, I feel like my political views have just kind of changed, and they've kind of settled in a middle ground. But for a really long time, I've believed in the veracity of both the sides. I could see both sides fighting against each other, and this, that, and the other. And it's not just political sides. I mean, the American politics is the thing that springs to mind, just because I know so many Americans, less so in the UK, but there's also the ideas and ideologies on climate. There's also the ideas and ideologies on health. And it sounds, along the grapevine, all these little bits of news going on, it sounds like the news media are prepping us to be prepared for a tough winter, B, to mask up because there's something coming, and C, to roll up. So yes, I can see that the polarity that has existed in recent times is likely to come out again, and be, we're going to be played, I think, to pick a side. It's always like, pick a side, which side are you going to go to? The safest place for you is in the middle. And it's not to have a pre-made decision, it's to have a decision in the moment. So you might feel left leaning, however, you can't guarantee that you're always going to be like that, no matter how left leaning you are, no matter how you subscribe to that, because you never know when there's going to be a moment where you go, oh, hang on. Same for the right, same for all different health decisions. And so I think all bets are off with this full moon. I think the best place to be is in the middle. Just when people are trying to pull you into their BS, or pull you into a very lively conversation, I think it's important just to say, maybe I can see how that's right for you. Yeah. And I'm still not sure myself. Just absolutely maintain your peace, because anyone that's not in peace will be trying to pull you left, right, and center. Probably not into the center, but they're going to be pulling you all around, trying to knock you off your center. But that's the safest place to be, because actually that's the only place where we can really find our truth in that moment. I do think our truth can change moment by moment, but it doesn't change the truth of the moment before. But like true. You can only be true in the moment. You can only know what's true for you in this exact moment, and in the next moment it could change. And I think that's where some of the tension comes, where we're trying to hold on to our views and our ideas, and yet we can't even really hold on to them anymore. It's really difficult. Feels like we're on shifting sands. And this is a kind of precursor, because next month we've got 2 eclipses. So there's a lot of energetics going on right now. So anyway, what I think is really good is we've still got this lovely grand trine here and kite energy. So we've got this grand trine in the earth energy, really stabilizing us and helping us, giving us all the tools to be able to find relief and find our way through in a particularly confusing time. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there. I think just going to check the comments. Penny's confirming, yes, Jupiter is in my 12th house. So yeah, that new moon for you, Penny, is definitely more of an internal process. You might also want to consider how your optimism has played into your downfall, because Jupiter is all about optimism and expansion and joy and abundance. And Jupiter is also a place where we go over the top. And in the 12th house, we're not really checking what's going on. The 12th house is a bit hidden. It's very easy to not check and say, oh, I can't quite see that just yet. So with this new moon, you may well find that you are feeling a little bit over the top. So just pay a little bit of attention to that, but I'm sure you'll have an insightful time. And given your career, I think it's perfect for you. So anyway, sending you lots of love. I'm going to do the month by month, sort of not month by month, sign by sign forecast at some point today. So watch out for that if you want to get an update for your particular star sign. If I can be of any help, then please do just give me a shout. It's louisatannermunson at gmail.com, or you can go to feelgoodastrology.com. All of my details are below. If you like chatting about consciousness and feeling good and all that kind of malarkey, then please do subscribe to the Barefoot Broadcast on YouTube. I'm going to be starting a daily chat show where I'm going to be chatting to people like you and other people, coaches, people that have had life-changing situations, people that have lost, that have loved, that have found themselves again. It's basically a show to talk about how we can get ourselves into a good feeling place and how we can do that as quick as possible. So there's going to be lots of tips, lots of tools, lots of fun, lots of sharing. And there'll be a bit of a community feel with it. So if that's your kind of thing, then please do join me there. It's going to be called the Barefoot Broadcast Show, and it's going to start in earnest on the 4th of September. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining me here today. I really appreciate it. And yes, we'll catch you another time. Bye for now.